Welcome, everybody, to episode 16 of PT Shop Talk. Today, we talk about complex regional pain syndrome, as well as our top 5 comeback stories. I'm Casey Hansen. With me, as always, is Nick Doling and Jeremy Van Klompenberg. I just realized I didn't come up with a nickname for you guys today, so insert your own, everybody. Yeah, I didn't know.
I got nothing.
Well, yeah, when you go with comebacks, it was like, oh boy, I just like, what do I do? Like Nick Seabiscuit Doling. You know, I didn't have anything good there.
Was Seabiscuit a comeback?
I don't know.
Never saw it.
Either. Yeah. When we talk lists, mine's pretty shallow because like I only like a few sports. So
I think I got kind of creative. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I'm well spread out.
No, I'm not. So been a week talking about cat out of the bag. Nick and I talked about this earlier, but Stranger Things trailer dropped, I believe, yesterday or the day before.
Big deal.
Yeah, that is a huge deal. Now, Jeremy, I was discussing this with Nick. Are you a Stranger Things guy? I feel like that's on the edge of your terror scale.
No, I am.
It's within the spectrum.
Come on,
right?
man.
I told him I thought you did.
Yeah, Nick supported you.
You consider that scary?
Whoa.
Did you not see season 3 where Shadow Monster absorbed human beings and turned into like a big gross monster?
People are dying.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That doesn't.
What do you consider scary? Ghosts?
No. Well, yeah. You know, it still crosses my mind, like when I see my daughter like crying like on her monitor, I'm like, do I look at this and like see her get like wiped across the screen somehow? Like,
so you're like
that's
a paranormal
scary
activity.
That's scary to me.
The unknown scares you more than the known.
People with sewn on faces that are dismembering people, pretty scary. I mean,
okay.
But Stranger Things I didn't think was.
So does it have
really
to be
scary.
Like semi-based in reality for it to scare you? Like, say, like somebody like Freddy Krueger could never happen. Like, people don't go into your dreams and murder you.
No.
But like Jason, minus the like weird undead part, like just going around slaughtering people, that's more scary.
That's scary. Yeah.
So would you say Jason scares you more than Freddy Krueger?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I can't really give a good answer on that because I've never seen either of them.
Okay. What about like Halloween? I feel like Mike Myers.
Let's reframe this because we got to get to the heart of this. I think this is a great.
Let's get back to Stranger Things.
Stranger Things 4 trailer. Casey, Jeremy, have you seen it? The trailer.
I've not seen it yet.
The doozy. It's a good one.
It is one of the best trailers for something I've seen in a while.
They're splitting this season in half, right?
Correct.
They're kind of doing 4 or 5, kind of like they oh crap, now I'm gonna forget what it's called. It's like
May 27th is the first half, and then July 1st is the second half.
It's kind of like the Ozarks, which that also drops at the end of the month.
And
they did the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So. And they say that this is going to be the biggest season yet. So like, I think their usual is 8 episodes. So I'm guessing it's going to be like 12, maybe 14. That would be terrific.
Yeah, it's a show that has consistently delivered for me. I would say they had like, in my mind, one bad episode in 3 years that I can really think of. So.
Season 2, episode like 7 or 8, whenever they just totally went off track and they're like, let's show what's going on in Chicago.
Story and here's a bunch of people we'll never talk about again.
It's like a crappy X-Men movie that they made.
It reminds me of like Breaking Bad when they had like the Fly episode where it was like, wow, we just need some filler, and so we had somebody else write a quick episode because we were out of ideas.
Never saw that, but I'd like to someday.
You've never seen Breaking Bad?
So no, I have not.
Oof. Okay,
that's not
so scary. I was going to have a question for you, Casey.
Yes.
My other kind of horror movie aficionado, bro. So what did you think of when they revealed the villain at the end? What were your thoughts? What did you kind of think of as far as like movie references of the past?
Like as he descends, like are you Are you referring to like the reveal or the person themselves?
Kind of the way they filmed it, the way the kind of the design, the character design. Because I'll just say, I thought right away of Pinhead and Hellraiser, like
Okay.
almost right away.
I
And
thought of Pinhead and Hellraiser more like right away when you like hear him.
yeah,
You know, your suffering's about to end. Like,
yeah.
ooh.
Dang it, I'm
Ooh.
excited.
He says, ooh.
Yeah, like I said, that's amazing trailer. That was a hot way to start the thing. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm all in. I can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm
So-
definitely gonna watch that too. I mean,
Awesome.
like that's not outside my realm.
Now they did warning, Jeremy. The Duffer Brothers have said this will be their scariest season yet, and
What?
they said the first 3 seasons, as they've said many times, were like the hybrid, the amalgam of Steven Spielberg, Stephen King, right? Like E.T. meets Stephen King meets It. Well,
Yeah.
now this one, they're growing up, bro. It's time to go full horror. So
Bloody
they're-
nose.
So it
Yeah.
was cool when I thought when I thought not Pennywise, but when I thought of Hellraiser right away with the new villain reveal, I'm thinking like, even afterwards they said, I was watching this whole thing with the brothers anyways who created it, and they said that their 3 inspirations for this villain are going to be Freddy Krueger, Pennywise, and Pinhead. So I'm like, that's pretty much right on the money.
Yeah, it looks good. I like the haunted house-ish looking aspect to it. I think that's
Mhm.
kind of cool, something they haven't done before.
Yeah.
In the real world, and the upside down looks creepy as hell.
The upside down is creepy. Yeah.
Yep. They're going to spend
How-
more time in the upside down than they ever have, they said.
Yeah, because they didn't
Maybe it
do almost any last season, if they did any.
None.
So
I think they said that they did none last year, which is kind
Nope.
of surprising. Because 11 sealed up the portal at the end of season 2.
so
God, she's a stud. Is there like a more talented like female actress than Millie Bobby
yeah, she's cool.
Probably for the next 2 or 3 years, and then she'll disappear.
Brown? Yeah,
Oh.
history does kind of show that.
Yeah.
Negative. You're just talking about the Ozarks. Look at how he's turned his career around from a child actor.
Yeah, I guess.
Hey,
I guess.
you know
Dude's
what?
killing it.
Yeah.
I take
I
that
like
back.
him now better than ever.
Jason Bateman. That's
Yeah,
what we're talking
Jason
about?
Bateman's
Oh,
the
yeah.
man. Sorry.
That's
Should've
like
qualified.
otherworldly resurgence. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Hogan
I mean-
family. I love the Hogan family. That's a kid.
Yeah, he looked like he had nothing. I remember when he was making that mini resurgence. Arrested Development had kind of just came out, and there was that.
Mhm.
What was that stupid Assassins movie? Something Aces or something, and he played like
I think it was called Aces. Yeah.
something along those lines, and it was like, oh boy, he was actually pretty funny in that. But I was like, this guy's never gonna make it. Like he's already taken
Yeah.
garbage roles.
Well, I think
And yeah,
I think-
now he's like so likable. Like in the Ozarks, I'm like, he's just a
He's good.
cool dude.
did he officially kind of come back with Dodgeball in that small role?
Probably had to be pretty close.
I gotta
Um,
think so. I don't recall him doing much more before that. That was of substance or anything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's back everywhere, and you're like, "Hey, cool, good for you, Bateman."
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Arrested Development really kind of opened the door for him there. So.
Well, very cool, very
Mm.
cool.
Mhm.
So, Jeremy, final topic on this, since we're on horror and all that.
Yeah.
So, what's like the scariest movie or 2 that you have seen? Sat.
I couldn't even tell you, man. I try to forget about them.
You
Like-
close your eyes. You're like,
There's nothing enjoyable about a scary movie. Nothing.
And does Amy
Like-
share that? No, 'cause
No,
you said
she
Amy-
absolutely loves scary movies.
That's what I thought.
like-
yeah.
And I'm like, no, watch by yourself.
So that's your exposure to him as she's got it on, and you're like, oh, what's this? And you're like, yeah, peace out.
I will say this. One of the creepiest movies I would say is The Shining. I have seen The Shining.
Yeah,
That was
Yeah.
creepy.
I guess
Go
it's a
with
bad
that.
movie.
You'd probably be like, it's more squirmy. That's not. It's not-
I wouldn't even call it squirmy. It's great. I mean, phenomenal tension building.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a
Yeah.
good movie. Yeah. I mean, there's creepy parts, like
Yeah.
lady in the tub in the
Yeah.
room. Like that. Whoa!
Yeah, but there's
Some
like
creepy
no.
moments.
Okay, yeah, there's no real. It's not like graphic horror though. No real
No.
grotesque stuff. No.
No, yeah. I
Well,
mean,
don't
that's
ask me
probably
the question if you don't want the answer.
No.
I love
This
it.
is just helping us kind of understand like where we can dialogue, because eventually it's going to be Halloween season and we're going to have a few of these topics.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna.
I just want to make sure that you feel part of the team. You can contribute.
What?
Maybe that'll be my mission
You're
is to watch some scary movies.
As a guy who watches horror, Nick, I mean, are there horror movies that scare you? Or are you dead to it?
I got to think about that. No, the answer is yeah. I mean, there's certain things that definitely, and Jeremy made a good point, that made me squirm for sure.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I gotta look away from. And
yeah, but I consider that different though. You know, like that's just, I mean, anybody can watch gross out stuff. I don't.
God,
We're like scary movies, you know.
Last
where
time,
like,
yeah. The last time I remember,
turn on all the lights in the house, and
you could probably say what you will about it, but the last time I can vividly remember, the last time I felt like tension throughout a whole movie, where I was like, man, like my heart rate was up the whole time, and that was the first Jeepers Creepers movie. I thought the way they established
good.
The ending gets a little, cuckoo, but
I don't know. I think just the Justin Long scene at the end sealed it all for me.
Losing his eyes and all that, or whatever, taking his eyes,
But like the way, where'd you get them peepers?
The way he just shows up, I mean, the way they bring in, they start the movie, they're just driving, and then slowly this truck just slowly starts showing up behind them, and you as the viewer are like the only one that really kind of notices. And from that point on, the tension's just really strong. So, but that was like the last time I remember just feeling that throughout a movie.
One that still gets me a little bit, I think still creeps me out, is like The Strangers. Familiar with that? Where they're out
Liv Tyler?
Yes. Yep. I believe that's the female actress. But, it's like so Minnesota, out on a lake cabin, people just show up and just start terrorizing you. Like it feels too real. I think that's why that one creeped me out.
Yeah.
And they did a good job of
it was inspired by true events.
Yeah, and you'd see them in the background here and there, like they were in the house already messing with them, and I don't know.
I'm fairly certain I did see that. I think I saw that movie too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. For whatever reason, that one creeped me out. I mean, it's not like a great, well talked about horror movie, but I don't know. It's just creepy. Again, probably growing up in the middle of nowhere, it hit me harder because, like, literally that could be any night of my life. So
yeah. For like growing up, for some reason, I could still remember the first time I saw The Fly, and I was way too. It was like a Fox Saturday night movie, and it came out at like 10 p.m. and I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I mean, I was like just laying in bed, like nothing but thinking about grotesque Jeff Goldblum and all that, and it was just like messing with me. But I was gonna say, if we do like the scariest scenes ever, I think Fire in the Sky. You've seen that movie?
That's the alien abduction.
Yep. And there's a scene in there where he gets hypnotized and he gets taken back and he can vividly remember his abduction and he's in there. That's definitely a top 5. Have you guys seen that? I mean, if you can recall that,
I don't think that would be as scary being an alien abduct like that. I think that premise,
scene, Jeremy. Watch it.
Yeah,
it's so scary.
I know, dude. I know you, bro. And if you watch, just especially. Well, you almost have to watch the whole movie to get that appreciation, though.
Yeah.
Like, because when he finally does, and it's basically like a reveal. It's not in his head. It's like real.
But I would agree. I think I would really resonate with what Casey said, though. Like the real type stuff where it's like it makes me so cynical of everything and everybody. Like Amy complains about that at times, where I'm just like, you never know, might be a freaking axe murderer, like that stuff creeps me out way more.
Yeah, well, way more than like. Did you guys see the new? I know Casey saw the new It movies, right?
Correct.
No, I didn't watch that. You sent me the trailer for that. I was like, no freaking way I'm watching this.
I'm telling you, okay. I take the Fire in the Sky line back because I cannot bring myself to watch the opening scene where Georgie gets it. I can't do it. I started it and I'm like, I had to walk because I didn't see it in the theater. I was streaming it and I started and he like is talking with Pennywise and he's like crouched down there and I know what's coming because I've seen the original, read the book. I
Yeah.
couldn't, I like walked away. I'm like, I'm going to let this play out because I can't watch this happen to this little boy.
See, I actually find the miniseries, as cheesy as it is, to be scarier. Like my
No.
mind does not do well with CGI. Like things that are CGI, my brain instantly goes to probably the Jeremy thing, like, oh, this is not real. Like it's instantly not scary to me. Where the original, even though it's cheesy,
Yeah.
like it's all special, like real life special
Practical
effects. So
effects.
my brain's like, oh, that could be real. I mean, tear his arm off. He's a clown, murder clown. Okay.
But that's what but
He's
like,
clown.
okay, so in part 2, when he kills that little girl underneath the stadium, that didn't do anything for you. I mean, that like ripped my heart out.
Oh yeah, that's probably, I would say, the best scene of, for sure, of the second one.
Oh, dude, the second one with the little boy and McAvoy's trying to save him, and he's in the mirror house.
Yeah, and again, those are two
I'm doing it
scenes
to myself.
Yeah, those are two scenes though where they don't rely on CGI. You know, there's just
no, it's all tension. It's
like the film projector scene didn't do anything for me. You know, because he's like filling the whole size of the garage and he pops out like that.
Yeah, it gets a little. I can go with you there. It's a little cheesy. Yeah,
and same with when he tears his arm off. Like the teeth come out and it looks like computer graphics. It just didn't do it for me, that part. So,
man, some of our kids though. Kids are. I mean, Stephen King's such a bastard for using kids that way, right? I mean, it's such a manipulative tool, but nobody else goes there.
Kids
I mean,
are
most probably went too far sometimes with that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. In most films, kids are pretty safe. It's adults that get it, you know, or teenagers at the youngest. But he's not been afraid to like expose, you know, little kids in his books to like terrible things, and it just makes you resonate more, I guess, as a reader. I think.
I would agree.
Yeah. Almost as painful as CRPS in the upper extremity.
Yeah, Georgie probably would have developed phantom limb pain, which is very similar. So, super traumatic.
Take it away.
Yeah. No, you know, I thought we would talk a little bit about complex regional pain of the upper extremity, just because it is one of those things that luckily we don't see a whole lot. I think incidence is between 5 and 70 per 100,000, so it's not overtly common. But through the research, I did see like Colley's fractures have a like 36% rate of developing CRPS. So that's actually pretty high for those of us that treat wrist, hand type stuff. So, you know, definitely we see it where I work. Definitely had some patients and saw some pretty good results. But then I've seen, and we can talk about that too, you know, the incident is most common in Caucasian 40-year-old females. And I would say those patients I've seen that fall into that category have had much worse outcomes for me.
So maybe for our listeners, what's the layman in your mind, Casey? What's the kind of layman's definition for CRPS?
So that's probably the problem is there isn't like a easy way to describe complex regional pain syndrome, hence the name, right? When we were in school, we called it RSD, right?
Yep.
Or causalgia, two names that were common for longer time therapists. But really what it is your body's kind of dysregulation of its normal response to injury. It's really what it comes down to. So typically when we get an injury, we have, you know, three main systems that get involved, right? Your neural system initially to alert you of external stimulus, your endocrine system to start the initial healing process, and your immune system to protect your inside, and then to finish the healing off. So with complex regional pain syndrome, it's these patients that normal system becomes dysregulated. And a lot of times that initial injury response at the nervous system level, and really from a sympathetic and autonomic system level, those initial ramp ups in normal injury, we have secondary systems with like the HPA axis and then our immune system that shut those processes down eventually to return to homeostasis. And for whatever reason with complex regional pain, those systems don't roll in and shut the thing down. So it's really a patient that's almost living in a constant state of that initial injury state. So we typically see a lot of hyperalgesia, allodynia, a lot of swelling, vaso changes. And then that leads to a whole cascade of effects, as we see. It's like central sensitization, whether you believe in that terminology or whatever it is.
Do you?
Wait, I don't know. I'm still on the edge about it. I don't know if it's enough, I guess. Central sensitization is maybe making it too basic in some ways. Yeah, there's some spinal cord level changes. And if that's all you want to say central sensitization is, maybe that's okay. But I think the endocrine and the immune system play such a bigger role in it. And those two systems are probably the ones we're not understanding enough yet too, which is why I think some of those things like complex regional pain syndrome, chronic fatigue, why those are so hard to treat still.
Do all cases of CRPS come with those trophic changes?
So if you look at diagnostic, there's no test for CRPS. I mean, you can't run a blood test. We can't say hormone level or cortisone level coincides with it, but they use like what they call Budapest criteria. So you need to have 3 of the 4 on the criteria to match it up, and those include sensory changes, so hyperalgesia, allodynia, vasomotor, so skin color changes, asymmetry, temperature changes, edema, and then motor trophic changes. So you have to have 3 of those 4 symptoms, and then at least a sign present on evaluation, 2 of those 4. And really that's how they determine whether they have CRPS. And then you have to have no other reason, right? It's kind of a diagnosis by exclusion. If something else explains it better, you go with that. And then there's 2 types of CRPS. They'll categorize you type 1, type 2. Type 1 is just you had a precipitating injury, although there's some argument whether that should be a factor or not. Type 2 means you have nerve involvement. There's some known nerve injury with the CRPS. So CRPS type 2, typically a lot harder to treat. And then they'll also stage CRPS. Acute stage is kind of what they call hot or warm CRPS. So you haven't seen a cooling of the limb yet, where late acute stage, they kind of call it cold CRPS. So now your body has dissociated enough from the limb where it's actually vasoconstricted and shut blood flow off. So
so early on, when you get somebody who's in that hot phase or they're early in the process, what are some treatment strategies that you employ that you found to be successful for that?
Yeah, I think number one thing is to try to find a way to take the fear away, explain it to them in a way they can kind of understand a little bit, and some of that is that
with metaphors.
Good call.
If they're the kind of person that, you would think would respond to that. Again, the problem, I see it a lot in teens, young teen athletes. And I would say they don't respond that great to metaphors because they just don't listen to anything you say.
Or do they not have as much life experience too?
We're right.
In order for a metaphor to get through, I think you need some frame of reference, right?
Yeah, and it's just so for whatever reason, the metaphor just typically don't stick with them. So it's finding ways to explain it. And then it comes down to, again, another thing that they will see that predisposes people to this is, interesting enough, high socioeconomic status. But part of that is probably just they have access to doctors to diagnose it. If you're low socioeconomic status, this is one of those things that's going to get pushed aside and you're going to get bounced around because nobody really wants to treat it because there's not great treatments for it. So higher socioeconomic status people, that may just be
they
correlation,
a little bit more. Yeah.
Correlation more than causation. But we do see that folks, type A personalities tend to be predisposed to it. So people that have a lot of anxiety, stress, and I would say the patients I have, that is all of them. I've never seen like a stoner dude come in with CRPS. I mean, it's just,
so
it's
CBD
again, it's
could be a viable option.
But so early treatments definitely come into as far as coping strategies, calming strategies with them. And then you get into how do you treat a limb you can't move? Because most of these patients have the motor stuff, whether it's true motor loss or whether it's just fear of movement. And then the sensitivity, so you can't touch them, they can't touch themselves, their family can't stretch them, move them. So how do you get input to a limb that you can't touch? So that's when we start with like graded motor imagery, goal setting, things like that. So
are you doing a lot of like left-right discrimination, 2-point discrimination?
Yeah, these folks I do for sure, because it is kind of a easy thing for them, and I found that again, my teens respond well with like making. I've had them make either cards or like a wheel to decide what kind of treatment they're going to do that day, because we talk about anxiety being a factor. Nothing makes them more anxious than knowing they have to go to therapy and get touched. Like it's going to be painful, right? And same with their HEP you give them. If they know every day they got to do this one thing, you try to find things they enjoy, but the reality of this is it's tough. So I give them options that way too. We put some fun things on the board that really don't bother them, and then we put some things that might, and they might have to spin that or pull a card 3 times a day, and some days they might get a complete break from it. Just luck of the draw. So as far as graded motor imagery goes, we start with laterality. I use an app. I use the Recognize app, and I usually have them download it.
Again, I've used Orientate.
Okay,
and that's like a nice free one. It's got both a hand and a foot pack on it, and you can get into more paying stuff. And but if somebody's not technological, there, like grabbing a magazine, flip through this whole magazine and find all the right hands,
circle all the left ankles or whatever, right elbow.
So
cool.
Yeah, those work good. I've had students I print off like 8 pages of hands and feet that I have saved on my computer, and I just have students cut them out, and then I give those out to keep. I give them 40. Have them work through those. And then your graphesthesia, 2-point discrimination, those work pretty well too. A lot of times it gives them some comparison. And I like to, usually when I start my session, I usually have the patient tell me like, where's the sensitivity starting today? So they tell me. So I typically don't cross that line until I feel like we've gotten to a point of comfort, just so we're going to work on some things. We're not going to cross that line again. So try to take that anxiety away from them. I'm really, with these patients, you don't want to surprise them with anything. This is definitely a population where you really walk them through your treatment and make sure they understand what you're going to do. Because again, you want to take as much anxiety away.
Up, right?
Yep, they're ramped up. So it's kind of my early interventions. Goal setting's big for these folks too. That so for graded motor imagery, right? To like pick some things you really want to do again and write them down, and then work on that in pieces, right? If they're really hot and it's walking on grass, we might start with graded motor imagery of just like picture your foot, but just picture it normal color, not swollen, right? Do that for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. If you can do 30, then we can move on. Because it is amazing. We'll have these patients in session, and it will be something like, I want you to close your eyes and just picture yourself moving your foot. And I mean, the amount of pain that can bring on is crazy.
Interesting. So interesting. How much mirror box stuff do you do?
So that's kind of
out of my mouth.
What was that, Jeremy?
I was just saying, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's where I was going.
I think that's the next step. With the graded motor imagery stuff, they do okay. Then we do the mirror, which if you can get to the mirror is awesome. Because I've literally seen these extremities change color in a good way within 30 seconds of pulling the mirror out. Or the mirror box. You can watch the limb change color. Like, it's cool.
Wow, that's cool.
And conversely, you can
record that. Do you ever record that and have videos of it?
I haven't. I've taken pictures. Cool. I've taken pictures for the patients, because when we talk about like long term, how do you prep these patients? Because reoccurrence rate's like 10 to 30%. So I use that as a good tool to show them like how well they manage it and how quickly they've managed to change their symptoms. So we've done pictures. I guess I've never done the video, usually because I'm just kind of involved in the treatment, I guess. But and I just have never happened to have a student with when I've done it. But it's pretty cool. And conversely, you can see it go the other way. Like it'll get modeled in purple within 10, 15 seconds sometimes if you're doing something too aggressive. So then you back off.
Pull back.
That's not what you want to do. So That's usually what the the short-term early stages look like. And bum thing about this is it does sometimes take a long time.
Yeah.
I think prognosis is 85% of patients get better within 2 years, slowly get better. So that's usually what you're looking at on treatment timeline. And again, I would say that falls more into your 40-year-olds. The teens I've had, man, have responded well within 3
Okay.
months, usually back to participating in sports is what I've seen.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be a hard thing to overcome, no matter who you are. But yeah, I suppose if you're otherwise healthy, young, I mean, tissue's tissue, so typically they do bounce back.
but I've heard of other patients in those age groups, those struggling pretty mightily. I mean, within our company, we've had some of these stories, but I will say they have all seemed to come out of it. So
good.
It's just what the journey looks like is pretty variable, because for a lot of them, this stuff in the home and in the clinic work, but there are some of these CRPS patients that really need to go to boot camp where they're literally there for 2 to 4 weeks at a facility, and it's 8 hours a day. Some of those boot camps look at overloading. They'll just keep putting them through the paces until the body breaks.
Wow.
Pretty much, you talk about that feedback dysregulation, like they kind of force the body to regulate it eventually. Like, we're going to force you to shut this down, and talk about misery. I mean, it works, but I always question, Mayo will do it. And, they have
we had a couple go through Mayo.
And they have a pretty high success rate.
And that's 4 weeks?
Depends.
Some of them kind of depends on how it looks.
Because I was going to say, like, then I don't know, that's like so tough as a clinician too. Like, you weigh that and you say, like, okay, well, this is going to be a really crappy month versus like, this could be a really up and down 2 years, and you just don't know, right?
Well, we had one gal, we had one teenage girl fits that demographic, and it was her elbow. And this was quite a while ago. And she had gone through, probably 2 months with us and minimal of any success whatsoever. Didn't want to move it at all. And her parents got her into Mayo and same boot camp. I want to say it was like 3 weeks, maybe 4. And she came back and she was probably 80%, 85% better. And then we just were able to kind of finish her off and get her back to, and she got back to competitive sports. So, I mean, I do think there's some value to it.
Nick, I swear we had one too that was a younger gal ankle that we both saw a little bit, and that was a little longer one too, but and at least to my recollection, ended up pretty darn successful coming out of it. So obviously varying intensities of it, and like it is like when you have a diagnosis of basically exclusion, it can be pretty vague on what you expect your prognosis to be. It's tough.
And we didn't really I know Casey stuck very much to the kind of the medical model with it, which is very fair. But and you touched on some of the psychosocial, but I think maybe it's the case you and I are thinking of, Jeremy. But I feel the psychosocial components were as big as anything else involved in this person's life, because I felt like there was a lot of progress made within sessions, very observable, very objective progress. And then it was almost as though when the patient would come back and they were aware of that, there'd be different factors in the home life or, social life with friends where they'd be back to like square one. And you're like, what happened? Like, I just don't know. And it's almost like an adverse reaction to healing. And maybe I think when Jeremy and I would talk about this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Casey, because I think in some of these populations, in my professional opinion, I think it kind of becomes pain and chronic pain in one area kind of becomes their identity and how they are recognized by family members or friends, because it's a problem that maybe gave them some
attention,
some recognition, attention. Attention is probably the best word. So what are your thoughts on that, Casey?
Yeah, I think social determinants of health and biopsychosocial model, I think in any pain situation is important. And I think that's obviously probably what a lot of therapies may be missing when we talk about why some of our patients don't get better. is just recognizing that and addressing it. And, as far as pain as an identity, that's always a tough one, because that is easy to, I don't know, put our views on patients too. There's a little bit of a leap there, from what we are perceiving to maybe what they're perceiving. I think it's tough, because how do we delve through all that psych stuff and get to the root of it, because it is hard for me to imagine people want to be in those situations. But yeah, what are the steps that got them there? And, is it
Right,
just
like,
what they know?
I don't know. I don't know if I would go that they want to be there,
Mhm.
At least
but
not
they
consciously.
like some
Yep.
of. But I would say that I think at times there can be some liking of the periphery of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to be in pain, but there's also, it's like, man, I don't know. I agree with you. It's like it can be a slippery slope
Mhm.
where you can put somebody in a box really quick and just be like, man, they don't want to get better, because they da 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 da. But
Mhm.
and I don't think it's as simple as that. But I do think that there are other silver linings, if you will, for some folks when they're in that situation, and it's
Yeah, like you said,
to
it's
delve into.
it can just be a dangerous mindset as a medical practitioner, because I do a lot of my patients I've seen probably feel that that's what medicine thinks about them.
Oh, correct.
Do I have a dangerous mind?
Whoa.
Oh, Coolio.
Coolio.
Yeah.
Well,
and then how do you address that then? I guess, like you
Like,
guys said,
I
you have
think,
these conversations. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I don't jump into that. It's not like visit 2. And I'm like, oh my God, this person's all in their head. They're just trying to get attention. That's not, I want to clarify that. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think where it was derived from, and I'll just speak for myself, and maybe Jeremy wants to give his take on it, but generally speaking, I've seen it predominantly in one demographic, and that's maybe female teenagers, where I've seen it. They're otherwise really healthy. There's generally something else going on within the family structure, within the family unit, that has taken a lot of attention, whether it's a divorce or whether it's another sibling who has gone through some serious ailment themselves. Those have been a couple things that I've seen. Not so much an adult population. However, I would say I can think of one gentleman with chronic back pain where I felt like he truly believed this was like who he was, and how he got attention from people. I think that it's derived from some of the innate, and just personally, I think it's driven from innate desires that every human has, like every human, like hierarchy of needs, right? And some of that is the need to be cared for, the need to have some focus of attention placed on them. If they're not getting it in one particular way, maybe this is how they got it, so it becomes that. And it's not something I ever jump to, or oftentimes have a deep conversation with the patients, usually ongoing and part of like when I need to determine when to maybe refer them out and discontinue care.
Yeah, I think if you really think it's a version of like almost like Stockholm from their own pain, right? Like they end up liking their captor at some point. I do think if you do get to that point where their worldview is just skewed so much, yeah, that's kind of a refer out deal, because I wonder how successful a person's going to be in therapy. Sometimes you might be, maybe you can be that person, but that can be a loaded thing to deal with, to try to manage on your own. And I think
and
as
I'm not
frontline
speaking
practitioners, we should look at referring out maybe more than we do
to more of like behavioral health, and maybe give them some counseling, especially when it's, and I'm not talking CRPS, because I can say right now, I don't believe I've treated a specific CRPS patient under my specific like care. I've jumped in and helped and assisted when Nancy was down here, but otherwise, I'm more speaking more of like a chronic pain component, where otherwise maybe every other orthopedic assessment you can provide them is normal within functional limit, and it's all just pain.
Yeah,
it's a complex deal.
I go,
for sure. I mean,
yeah, it is. It's like it's a rabbit hole you could delve into for hours, right? Like, and man, it's tough because I would never say it's like this, like, oh, they're malingering, I'm gonna go up on them, they're faking, it's
Yeah.
not that, but you go
You're
like,
not
man,
Waddell signing them?
you're just like going like, man, like what is this, like, kind of what is that missing piece, right? And obviously we're always searching for that side of it, and it is like, yeah, this is like, your motion's great, but then it's it's always something that you can't necessarily put your hand on or your finger on. And I would agree, like, that's where we probably can do a better job of like strengthening relationships within the medical community with behavioral health, and having people that you can go to, because you can kind of be like, well, you can Google it around here, and then you don't know who you're sending the person to. And
well, and that's a messaging too, I think, with my patients. I still struggle with like broaching that, because patients will come see me for an hour and really open up and like pour everything out sometimes, crying, talking about, difficulties with their spouses, their kids, their work. I mean, literally everything. And you're trying to absorb it all in. But then I might say, you ever thought about like going to talk to somebody about this? And they like freeze up, like, it's not a psych problem. That's why I'm here in physical therapy. So it's a tough thing to broach sometimes,
What would you say that shows?
But tough doesn't mean we should have.
What was that, Jeremy?
Sorry.
I would say, what would you say that shows, right? On both ends, like,
yeah,
why do they open up to you and why do they freeze up?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I would look at that as like, because ultimately they open up to you because they trust you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would maybe argue that if you're just like, again, it's like, how do you broach that topic? Because it's like, if you're like, you ever think about talking to somebody else about this? They're like, he doesn't want to hear about this. Yeah. And then it's like, toss it off. It's tough.
Yeah. And I think we do, try to at least plant the seed, on our eval, do a yellow flags assessment. And when they mark anxiety, depression, like, I see a marked anxiety, depression, you tell me a little bit about what's going on there, and they open up a little bit. And sometimes even in that opening up, they're like, I just wish I had somebody to talk to. And that's like, oh, perfect, we do have these relationships. But sometimes they, well, yeah, I have depression or whatever, and you can tell they're just shut down. So then that's something you got to then chip away a little bit at each time, and just kind of address it from a different angle. Like, how are you dealing with things at home? It's really tough. I just looking for answers. And so sometimes you can come from the back door a little bit with it too. I guess that's how I've approached it. But because like I said, it doesn't work very good to just, like you said, like, oh, talk to somebody else about this, please.
What do you think, Nick? Like, when you're running into that, like, how do you typically approach something like that?
Oh, well, I was thinking about one patient that I was seeing kind of towards the tail end of last year. And I was in a positive, I'm going to do a positive experience here, where she'd already been through a course of therapy post MVA. So she's coming in, whiplash related disorder, no other imaging findings of note, even had an open mouth CT, which was really good, right? Because historically we always trash them for not doing that. But anyways, you got chronic neck pain, and she's also got some PTSD. She can't drive because she was driving and saw this this kind of happen. Kind of happened. She witnessed it all, like eyes open, everything, very in the moment. And by the time I saw her again, she'd fallen off of therapy. I want to say she did 25 visits, marginal improvement. She was also a little flighty with her attendance towards the end. So her primary care provider referred her to us, and she ended up on my caseload. But she'd also, her PCP had given her a concurrent referral for behavioral health and start having some psychiatric appointments to help break up the PTSD. And so going back to that point, I think having more of the care team involved, and I had good dialogue, I have a good personal relationship with the PA that referred her over. So we were able to talk on the phone a few times and be on the same page. Exactly, because there was very little, very little from a kind of an orthopedic examination standpoint where she was deficient or really impaired, pretty high functioning other than the pain. She's still working, but limited in her job duties. So by being able to have that concurrently going on, I think it was very successful.
Yeah.
Well, what a great comeback story.
It was a great comeback story. Almost as good as those in our top 5.
Five.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on to our top 5 comeback stories.
All right. Let's let Jeremy explain his choice here. Why go with the top 5, my man? This choice.
This was in I don't know if you'd say in honor of, but having Tiger come back, play at the Masters last weekend, I figured this kind of connects the dots between what we do, right, day in and day out orthopedically and sports performance. And I figured there's a number of ways we could go with this, whether it's like an injury in a game, if people want to go like the Willis Reed type, injured and comes back in the middle of the game, or if it's like somebody that truly had a horrific injury and just like you think of that rehab process in between and then still come back and play at a high level. But yeah, Tiger had, I didn't even look it up what the number of days was, something like 540 days or something in between his last event. And then had his single car high-speed crash and open tib fib fractures and going through that process. And so pretty cool to see him make the cut after 14 months away from the game. And obviously a litany of other orthopedic surgeries in the past. And so that's what spurred it on. So
all right. I love it. I went with just kind of like the
Was that your number 5, Jeremy, or was that just your prep?
That was like half of my honorable mention.
Oh, yeah. I thought Nick was maybe just cutting you off.
No. He also did that with in 2008, he won the U.S. Open with multiple stress fractures and a potential ACL tear. That was pretty sweet too. But I'm done. That was not my 5 either. So
you get to go.
Take it
you
away.
Get to go. Yeah, I'll take it away. You get to go last this time. You've been so good.
Well, you just pulled last duty, son.
So, and I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident. Like my top 5 is gonna have a couple surprises for you guys, just in choice, but also some events that I don't know how tightly you guys follow those sports. So I'm excited to kick it off. Number 5. Mixed martial arts going to UFC 116, which is headlined by Brock Lesnar and Shane Carwin for the heavyweight title. And Brock this is a comeback story 2 different ways. It was Brock's first fight in like a year because of bout with diverticulitis. And he had to have like part of his intestine removed and came back a different guy. And Shane Carwin at the time, I believe he was undefeated. At least he was undefeated in the UFC and just about the same size as Lesnar, much better striker. And this fight is just outstanding because in the whole first round, Carwin knocks down Lesnar and just pummels him to the point of you're thinking at 2 or 3 occasions the referee should be stopping this thing. And you're like, how is it? I can't believe he's not stopping it. I can't believe he's letting it go.
Yeah, I feel like half the time they just hit the mat and they're like, it's over, call it.
Yeah, and you're thinking maybe with Brock's reputation, this ref's like letting Carwin take some liberties on him to like, because just a year before he was the most hated guy in UFC for all the smack talk he was doing. But somehow he fights through it, and Carwin's just gassed. He's just done nothing but heavy punches on top of him the whole time, and Lesnar's got this amazing chin and actually finishes around on his feet and throws a knee at him. And then coming out in the second round, Lesnar it's like one of the slowest double legs I've ever seen in mixed martial arts, but he accomplishes it, works up to an arm triangle choke and chokes out Carwin to come back and keep his belt. So pretty awesome moment. And he went from being like the most hated guy to one of the most like favorite guys just from his whole comeback story, and then just seeing him come back from that. So I think that was UFC 116, July 2010. So pretty freaking cool fight and moment. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, as my list will probably have no surprises. As I said, I didn't go very far beyond because I really followed mostly football, a little bit of basketball. Some baseball. I'm aware of other sports. As I was doing research on this thing again, I was like, wow, there's lots of cool boxing and UFC comebacks. I wish I cared, but I don't. So,
Come on.
So my number 5 was actually Michael Phelps, and I was a little on the board with it,
Okay.
on the edge,
Ooh.
because he had a heck of a career, and but it was marred with some behavioral issues, and it's this guy that was just huge gifts, competed his butt off. Then he got a little fame and started to marijuana and drinking and
little
partying.
CBD. Yep.
Yeah. 2008, 2012, we know how the Olympics turned out. I mean, dude killed it after 12. He retired. He said, I don't love swimming at all. I hate all this stuff. I hate all the attention. Seemed like he was done, and then like 2 years later, he comes out of retirement, says, he's ready to prepare for the 16 games. And then he gets a DUI. So that hurt that comeback a little bit, but he bounced back, and what did he won 5 golds and a silver at the 2016 Olympics, after having a storied career. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive to be away from the game 2 years, just absolutely quit because he hated something, and he found a way to come back and love it. He said multiple times, it was the first time he ever swam for himself. He changed how he went about things and smarter with his body, and
ate Subway. He ate a lot of Subway.
Subway. Well, I think
Secura.
Cut the Subway out. Maybe he went low
Did
carb
he?
because I don't know. Because he said, that was a big thing. Like, because 2008, 2012, he was, famous for eating 10,000 calories a day.
10,000 calories a day. Yeah.
And so for 16, he didn't do that. It was a lot more of stretching and recovery.
He ate less subs. He went double meat on the subs.
Smart.
That's probably what he did.
Wraps.
Brilliant.
You get
wraps.
Twice the meat with the wraps, and then you double.
Yes.
It was smarter. Eat smarter, not harder. So
good.
That was my
That's
number 5,
one.
Michael Phelps.
From the swimming world. I like that.
It's like my only non-traditional one.
Here, I was gonna say, you're talking like so mainstream, and then you just drop Michael Phelps.
Ooh, wait for 4th.
I'm super mainstream.
Oh, good.
My number 5.
The same list again.
Kobe, RIP. 2013. He tears his Achilles mid-game, about 3 minutes left of the game. And they're like, the commentators like, oh yeah, he's rubbing that ankle, and man, like, he's gonna sit there for a little bit. And he stands up, walks to the free throw line, knocks down 2 free throws. And the commentators doing it too, they're just like, oh man, we're just gonna have to see how he backpedals and how he gets the other the court. And he just walks, and he's just lifting up, right? He's just like zero plantar flexion at all. He's just lifting up, walking on the way back. And like you see on the replay, like they show it in his face, like obviously he just grimaces, right? But beyond that, he is just absolutely freaking stone cold. Just like, dump, 2 free throws, boom, boom, I'll walk off. And probably just super refreshing because, like, although I don't, it's like kind of a WWE component to the NBA, like, right, guys get fouled and they just flail around, I'm like, I'm not saying some of those guys don't get popped, but there's a lot of acting with that. So to see a guy go through an injury like that and just like kind of gut it out and walk off the floor, it was crazy. So that's my number 5.
All right. That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah. 2 ballsies, 2 free throws.
Number 4.
My number 4. Going back, I mentioned this in one of our football episodes, Casey. Going back to 1993, the Bills are down 35-3 at home to Houston Oilers in the AFC wild card, and their backup quarterback Frank Reich leads them to an overtime victory. I know we did a deep dive back then in honor of the playoffs and all that, but still super miraculous. In doing some additional research on it, I was reminded that Frank Reich actually orchestrated a massive comeback in college when he was with the Maryland Terrapins over the really kind of a high level Miami Hurricanes team back in like 85. And it's considered the biggest, I think it's still maybe the biggest comeback in college football history. And then he did the biggest comeback in NFL history. So Frank Reich.
Wow.
Yeah, you think he'll do a big comeback in coaching history?
He needs one as coach, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That's
that's a
my
good
number
one.
4.
And I was wondering when I went through this list, like, should I do single events like that? Is it about the story? Is it about the event? Should I focus on people? So
we always focus on the people.
Yeah, right.
Casey.
Of course.
Always.
Except for
that's the route.
I'm focusing on events.
Yeah, that's the route I went with this.
Because we did not communicate enough on this, apparently.
No, you know what? I like that. I like that ability to go either way. Yeah.
Because I thought about some of those moments and I was like, well, is that and you spun it well. It's a Frank Reich story.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe it's not the end. I don't know.
No, he's going to have a coaching one. All right, Casey, what's your number 4?
My number 4, I'm back. Michael Jordan. Obviously this one's a easy fruit to pick, I guess. It's not higher on my list, I would say, just because I think a lot of people probably thought it wasn't going to work out and he was going to come back, but it was interesting to watch the struggle in minor league baseball and come out pretty hot. He had a hitting streak, and then it's like, here's a changeup that you'll never hit. Like, it's just a guy that is an athlete, but it shows you how those sports are different, man. You could play your whole life, and something simple like that pretty much ends his baseball career. Although I don't know if he really ever thought. There's some probably varying opinions on why he quit, whether his dad was the catalyst to have to take some time off, or whether they told him to take some time off and quit gambling. There's some differing opinions on that. So, but to come back and did what he did, win 3 more championships. Little rusty after a year and a half off, but he tightened it up pretty good and returned to form pretty much where he left off. So that's a cool comeback story. Just cements him for most people as the greatest basketball player of all time. So I think it's definitely a big part of his story.
Yeah. We're in the 4 or 5.
Yeah. Comeback number 1 better than comeback number 2, but still.
Yeah.
That's my number 4.
Cool.
Awesome. My number 4 is staying in the NBA vein. So huge Golden State Warriors fan. And so this is semi-recent history. So Klay Thompson this week had 3 games in a row where he averaged 30 points. It's the first time in his career to ever do it. So the injury history there, right? He tore his left ACL in the 2019 finals against the Raptors, which I think they would have won had he not got hurt. But anyways, so he tears that, thinking like right June of 2019. So he's rehabbing that. November of 2020, he tears his right Achilles.
That hasn't happened yet. Oh no, 2020. No, shut up. I'll stop.
Well, it happened 2 years ago.
You're right.
It was happening right now.
I was thinking it's so right. My bad.
So
are you predicting the future, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Then he comes back in time,
2020, okay,
and scores 30 points in 3 games.
He was on a hoverboard. But
holographic sharks, big time.
So yeah, he goes from blowing out his ACL on his left to tearing his Achilles on the right within like a year and a half span. He missed 941 days as an NBA player. Comes back this year. Their team's been riddled with injuries. Steph Curry's out, coming back from an injury right now too. But to go from that level, right? You think both of those injuries, even 20 years ago, going through one of those would have been a flip of the coin, whether it was a career ender or not.
Mhm.
So to have to go through that, I just think of the mental fortitude to go through both of those rehabs back to back. It's just insane to me. So
Yeah.
that's my number 4.
Wow. You guys took a different take on this, and now I'm feeling bad because mine are so small in scope. But
In game.
mine's the
Events.
event,
You live in the
game.
moment, man. That's okay. That's
Yeah.
no
Oh,
problem.
these are good though. They're making me fired up because those are great stories. They're great human components. My number 3 is also staying in the NBA, Jeremy.
Nice.
So my greatest comeback in a game in the NBA was May 7th, 1995. I remember watching this live as a big New York Knicks fan at the time. And Reggie Miller throws down 8 points in 9 seconds to steal a big victory from the Knicks in New York and go on and win that series and pretty much put an end to that little run that the Knicks had. The Knicks were a really strong team. I think they were the reigning Eastern Conference champs. But that was kind of the end of that run, that core of, Jeremy, he gave the choke sign. Man.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the biggest comeback or one of the bigger chokes, but I mean, to hit back-to-back threes like that's pretty.
Just like he
pretty
does.
That was
clutch.
killer.
Yeah,
It was
killer.
incredible.
That is
Totally
incredible
moment.
Yeah,
Hated
and the
it when it
defense
happened
too. I mean, he
live.
did it all.
Yeah,
he
he
took
stole
that
the
game.
steals and
Yeah.
So that was in the Eastern Conference semis when I looked it back up. Yeah, but that was the end of the Knicks. You can't really say they had a dynasty because they were always like falling behind the Bulls in that Eastern Conference. But the rest of that team as they knew it, like you look at Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley,
John Starks.
I was a big Starks number 3. He was such a stud. Never the same after that. So number 3, Pacers beating the Knicks with 8 points in 9 seconds.
That's legit.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, it's hard to imagine you could reproduce that if you wanted to. I mean,
I watched that at the famed Carrington Youth Center that I've mentioned so many times already, Casey.
in between Tecmo Bowl games,
something like that. That might have been. I was a little past Tecmo.
Yeah, I suppose.
Into the real sports now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
NHL on the Sega. Is that what you guys were playing at that point?
Yeah, I did. I actually loved it. I loved that game.
NHL 95.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a solid game.
If you didn't win like 15-0, you suck.
Good way to look at it. I like your set the bar high. That's good. Why even play if you're not winning by 15? My number 3 will keep the basketball train rolling. I think I mentioned this before. Pretty much every sport, I am a Cleveland fan. Believe it or not. Browns, Indians, Cavs. Historically have been my teams. So
Why?
I was a big LeBron fan. Believe it or not, we're like,
Jeremy, get him.
Come on in, Jeremy.
My Lord.
I don't know if I know a bigger LeBron hater than Jeremy. Get him, Jeremy.
Oh, man.
Did you say Indians or Guardians? I just want to run that back. Oh.
It'll always be the Indians.
We're going to have to.
Major league, man.
Yeah. So, like I said, I was a LeBron fan. Like I said, we were pretty much the same age. I think I'm maybe a year older than LeBron. So, watched him in high school even, and then the Cavs drafted him, and it was like, oh yeah, this is a cool story. I sympathize with him. Like, boy, if I had made a few different choices in my life, I could be LeBron, right? That's how I felt. Similar stories. So when he did the Miami thing, that sucked.
So lame.
Yeah,
I was
super lame as a Cav fan, but
huge fan until that.
Yeah,
honestly.
But I still did. I had liked him enough with Cleveland that I kind of followed him with Miami. And then, he came back. What a comeback. He came back to Cleveland. Makes it the finals, loses.
3 times.
Golden State,
Twice.
yep. But then the next year, right,
3-2?
they're down 3-1 to maybe one of the greatest teams to ever play NBA basketball. A 73-win Warriors team. LeBron kind of puts it on his shoulders a little bit. I think the first game, him and Kyrie both scored 41. And then the next game, he scores 41 again. And then in the championship, it was just a slobber knocker back and forth. I think the lead changed 20 times, maybe tied it up 11. Came down to a pretty major block at the end from LeBron, and then sank a couple free throws. Golden State couldn't sink their threes, and they brings a championship to Cleveland. He comes back, top 5 comebacks, brings a championship to the city, and then has ruined basketball for him ever since. So that's where we're at. That's my number 3.
If memory, oh man, what was the wrestling shirt he wore? It wasn't Macho Man.
LeBron?
Yeah, in the parade after that year. Gosh, I'd have to look it up.
This is bringing back to
WWE.
I'll produce it while you talk about your
Jamie. Jamie, pull it up.
My number 3 is Teddy Bridgewater dislocating his knee in 2016. I don't know. I think as far as injuries go, like this wouldn't be like a performance thing, right? Because he's come back to play in the NFL and he's been like, you're a starter, right? Like, which is like crazy that we just like don't give that enough love. Like you're a starter in the NFL as a quarterback. But I don't know if I could think of a more horrific injury. Probably could if I was thinking about it. But a dislocated knee?
Yeah.
A dislocated
pretty
knee.
Dicey, yep.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Like you just
happen.
don't hear about that. And then especially like no nerve damage, no vascular injury. Like how? That's nuts.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty wild. I had a patient who dislocated their knee once. That was pretty wild to see.
Yeah.
He almost lost his leg.
In therapy?
Sure. Well, I'm pretty aggressive. No, I saw him after he dislocated his knee in the hospital.
So the surgeon was right on the TKA.
Yeah, I squatted
right.
with 10 pounds.
Yeah,
and the whole damn thing blew up.
Good callback, Jeremy. So Teddy came back, and so Teddy's been able to come back and be a mediocre talent in the NFL.
Yeah, but I still look.
What a comeback!
I'm a heel now.
Come on, guys.
That was my heel turn on the
podcast.
To be a starter in the NFL after that, like, you want to talk about injuries come back from. That's not.
It's incredible, like what he came through, and what he overcame. You're right.
And he wasn't a good quarterback before he got injured.
You're right.
So I don't.
He returned to his previous level of function.
He at least got to peel off.
Yeah.
All right, that's my number 3.
No, I think that's a good one. I thought about the Alex Smith thing too, in the same vein. Similar injury comeback. I mean, it is pretty amazing just to survive.
That
come
might
back
be on my
and
list
play.
later.
That's my number 2 is Alex Smith.
That's like the same thing.
You just said it.
Yeah, producing, by the way, Ultimate Warrior is the shirt he was wearing.
That's what it was.
Nice.
Blue and yellow.
Nice.
What's your number 2, Nick?
My number 2 in reality is not Alex Smith.
You had me. You had me at Smith.
But that was amazing.
My number 2.
In the context of that comeback, that type of comeback, that's amazing. He'd be my number 1. No, my number 2 is the 2004 ALCS, where the Boston Red Sox came back. I believe they're still the only team to ever come back down 0-3 to beat the hated Yankees, the dynasty of the Yankees, and punch their ticket to the World Series, and then go on and beat the St. Louis Cardinals. So pretty impressive. I remember watching most of those in a bar in Fargo, and becoming like, just as the
Fargo
series
or
went
Boston?
up, Fargo.
Fargo.
Right by the river. So
I could swear you're in Boston.
But you go from like
I like the combined accents. That's good.
I don't really and the thing about that whole series, I can't remember. I couldn't tell you what happened the first 3 games. It's just like, because they were so uneventful, and the Yankees are just trying
baseball,
like, whatever, right?
Yeah, that's any baseball series.
And then they go on. I remember they win the first game, and you're like, oh, okay, they're showing a little life, but it's still done. Then they win the second one, and you're like, nah, it's still gonna be hard. The Yankees are the Yankees, and they're gonna pull it out. Then they tie it up 3, and you're like, okay, way to go, Boston. You just keep becoming a bigger and bigger fan. 'cause
Fargo.
Everybody
The
hated
accent was
Yankees.
getting stronger and stronger.
Like, come on. You
Grab
freaking,
the khakis. We
Come on,
got to get to the bar.
stop it, you freaking hot-ons. Let me finish. But they went on and won the whole thing. Therefore, the curse of the Bambino was broken too. All that great stuff. So pretty damn cool. There we go. That's my numero dos, boys.
Yeah, cool story. I'm not a big baseball guy, but I did follow that even. The curse and everything. Would have made my list had I again cared about baseball. So like Jeremy, I was asleep during every game. So
not me. I was chugging beers down at Vic's.
Sammy Adams.
You passed the Adams. My number two to continue with people instead of events, Nick. My number two was Adrian Peterson, torn ACL. We talked about the basketball thing, right? There was a time when a torn ACL might have been your career. I would say still the torn ACL kind of points you towards, is he going to be the same person when he gets back? Are you going to be able to plant on it, run on it, especially with the running back? I would
still
say
think so? You think so in 2022?
Not as much, no. But I would say, in 10 years ago, 11 years ago, it was probably still a little different deal. But part of what makes his comeback cool is the speed of recovery. I mean, 10 months.
Accelerated protocol.
Yeah, for sure. And I
think it was 9. I think it was 9, right?
9.
I mean, because he injured it like at Christmas of
December
24th or something. 26th, 24th, somewhere in there.
Yeah, he was ready.
It was crazy.
Yeah, so
he
9
had
months and 2 weeks, whatever. We're splitting hairs at that point. But
6 days later.
Yeah, so
surgery.
That speed is pretty incredible. And then to come back and run for 2,097 yards, 6 yards a carry, 12 touchdowns. I mean,
I still adamantly believe he would have broken Dickerson's record had they not. They were judicious with him in September.
Yeah.
Because of his knee. And if you looked at it, I think his production went up every single month. He started like 80 some yards, but that was only on 15 carries or whatever you're giving him, right? And then October it went up to like 99, and then November he was averaging like 110 or 112 a game, and then December he was like 125. He was so much fun to watch that year.
Yeah, so that's what makes that like a cool story for me. Is definitely not the only guy to come back from an ACL, but the speed of recovery and then the level of performance when he came back. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. And I think it changed the way a little bit that they rehabbed ACLs after that. Like they gave them confidence that you could come out and accelerate it and push it and they can play. I mean, now, like you guys said, now an ACL's, he'll come back next year. You even see it in the draft.
It sucks for the moment. Yeah.
It sucks for the moment. And even these kids that tear their ACLs in college are getting drafted high. It's not, it used to be, you tore your ACL, like, ooh, boy, 3rd round, 4th round. That's where we're willing to take a risk with you.
The problem is the high schooler that thinks they're Adrian Peterson.
Well, yeah, when you have the best money and
medicine like,
and food.
You
might want to slow your roll a little bit there, champ.
I mean, he was rehabbing 6 days a week.
Oh yeah,
that was.
He put the effort
and he has
multiple hours a day.
When it's your career, you have that luxury, and you have that drive, purpose to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably the negative is we learned we could accelerate ACLs, but then they apply it to everybody, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. Not apples to apples.
Not apples to apples. No, but athletes, now it's, I think how you view ACL tears even in a running back is
I still think it's a positive. Still think it's a positive move.
Well, I think so too. I mean, we talked about last time, we're historically underdosing people post-op, any kind of op, any kind of injury. So any way we can get people's idea of how to rehab to change a little bit, I think is a good thing,
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Jay, do longer quads.
Yeah, how long did you think you did ankle pumps for?
For days. Weeks, probably. Anyways, I can't I can't go into a ton of this, but my number 2 was Alex Smith. Again, tib fib fractures, 17 surgeries, sepsis. almost losing his leg. Again, just crazy to come back and play, like, again, even though he was, maybe say like a shell of himself, right? But that's still crazy to think, like, hey, you're one of the best, 1,000 football players on the planet. Like, that's nuts. So I can't say a ton more that hasn't been said already. That's my number 2.
Awesome story.
Yeah, it's a cool story. It just didn't make my list just from the sports per se aspect of it. He was, like you said, kind of a shell of himself afterwards. Pretty much just made it to the field. Yeah, not good enough. If you're not scoring 15, you don't play. And Alex Smith didn't score 15. He won by 3-2, and that wasn't good enough for me. So I didn't make my list.
I disagree with you there, but that was pretty impressive. Did you guys see that happen live?
Yeah.
Because
I don't know if I saw it live or just on ESPN that day, but
I think they showed like 1 or 2 replays, and then that was it. Yeah, it was so bad.
It's pretty gruesome.
That was against the Texans, right? Texans.
I think
so. Yeah. Well, it's a pretty cool story though. He's back. My number 1 greatest comeback within an event of all time. In my opinion, it was in August. So I opened this thing off with a UFC fight for a belt in July of 2010. The following month, in August 2010, the greatest fighter in the world at the time, Anderson Silva, was defending his belt. He was 4 years champ. Nobody had come anywhere close to him. And Chael Sonnen had a wrestling background and was just talking mad shit about him, like everything leading up to the fight.
What?
And you're thinking, like, what's the point of this guy? This guy's like totally kind of mediocre journeyman guy on a little bit of a hot. I think he won 3 or 4 fights in a row and got this title shot. And you're like, God, it's such a waste of time. For MMA championships are 5-round fights, 5-minute rounds, and Chael pummels the hell out of Anderson for 4.5 rounds. And it's easily a lopsided decision. He's got it in the bag. And in the waning minutes, I think there's like 90 seconds left in the fight, maybe 2 minutes. And Anderson is on bottom, just getting the holy crap beat out of him by Sonnen. And he throws up what's called the triangle choke using his legs and makes Sonnen tap out to help, retain his belt. And it was just incredible. Nobody had ever seen any type of like comeback within a fight like that in the history of MMA after such a lopsided beating that he took. So it was just really, really awesome. Came out afterwards. I think it was a few months later. Sonnen failed a drug test or got the results back. So he was also doping during the time. Had an unfair advantage. So even better than Anderson came back and won. So just truly awesome if you're into the sport. I love comebacks within fights like that. It's really impressive. Takes a lot of character, heart, and then physical ability.
Yeah, and I think that goes to show my lack of knowledge of the sport, because I feel like when I watch it, that like, oh yeah, you put him in an ankle lock, it's over. Like I just wrestling for sometimes I don't get that excited with some of that MMA stuff, because some of the matches I watch, it's like, yeah, this guy's way better, and then he loses in like 30 seconds because he swung wrong or put himself out of position and the match is over. So that probably is just part of me. And boxing's kind of that same way, where it's like, the dude's getting killed, and then gets a lucky knock on the face and knocks the guy out. So for me, it doesn't hit quite as hard as Alex Smith coming back onto the field. And
yeah, that's fine. That's in the big picture.
Winning 3-2.
Yeah. I give it up to you guys. You guys have some good ones there. Some good ones.
I should have put better parameters on it.
I should have asked. So
I thought about asking, but I kind of like when
I kind of did too. I kind of thought, like, do you
mean what we want to do?
What's the
context? It gives some variation.
Well, I think it gives you some leeway too of what you want to search for, and like.
But to me, it feels like I created one list and you guys have 2 other lists. So I feel like I am the outlier on this one.
All right, that's all right.
All right, Casey, what's your
my number one? I went football. That's my favorite sport. So my number one was actually Peyton Manning, coming back from spinal fusion surgery, which for me, I guess I would still have probably considered that a career-ending surgery for a football player to have.
Yeah.
He at least you have to think about it, right? I mean, you have some more vulnerability there. Plus the nerve damage that was leading up to it, right? He wins a Super Bowl for Indy, misses the whole 2011 season with the fusion. Yep. So Indy goes 2-14, drafts Andrew Luck, says, see ya, thanks for everything you done. You're out of here. We don't really care about you anymore. Most people, again, had written him off. Like, yeah, your career's over. Like, you're never going to have zip on the ball. You're never going to be able to drop back and not be afraid of hurting yourself serious, and you should take that as like, you could be paralyzed, right? Which, again, with a fusion should be good as bone anyways, when it's all said and done. But I think people always have that in their mind, But yeah, it goes to Denver, has a pretty solid season his first year, and then comes back his next year and throws for almost 5,500 yards and 55 touchdowns. I mean, one of the most incredible seasons of a quarterback of all time after everybody kind of wrote him off. So to come back and do that, and then eventually a couple of years later win a Super Bowl, although he was definitely at that point showing, I think, some major signs of some of that nerve stuff really affecting his game. At that point, he really didn't have zip on his ball. So I can't give him a lot of credit for winning that Super Bowl, but he was good enough not to lose the Super Bowl with an incredible defense. So I think that's just, for me, a cool comeback story. He was so popular, and then it seemed like his career was just going to end on kind of a bum deal, not on his terms, and to come back and I think prove everybody wrong, have one of the greatest seasons of quarterback of all time after that kind of surgery. And to get another Super Bowl with another team. That was a cool story for me.
Totally good story, and very ironic Super Bowl as you noted, because by that point he was not very good.
It didn't look like he could throw the ball more than 10 yards at that point.
Yeah, but that defense was so stout, it didn't matter. They kind of pummeled Carolina in that Super Bowl. But
Cam Newton just gave him a Super
Bowl. It's interesting. You took your top two, both happened the same year, same season. That's pretty cool, because Adrian got the MVP and Peyton got Comeback Player of the Year, and everybody was wondering. They knew those two awards were going to be to those two guys, but they just weren't sure who would get what.
Yeah. So, that's my number one.
Oh, awesome. You just inspired me, Casey.
To get his fusion?
No.
Okay.
You want to hear a comeback story? Because, like my old number one was AP. Yeah, just strictly like timeline of injury, MVP, missed like 9 yards, missed a single season record.
You're like, but guess what? Jeremy Van Kloppenburg sprained his ankle in the college semifinals.
Oh my God. We're going off script right now.
Going straight off script.
Oh no.
So my wife, talking cervical fusion. So gosh, she would have been a sophomore in high school in Michigan. She was a gymnast. She's a stud gymnast. Back in the day, they used to use the pommel horse for the vault and not the platform. I probably pronounced that wrong because gymnastics is not my deal. So
I'll agree.
Her hands slip off the horse and she lands on her head.
Ooh.
So the athletic trainer, in their infinite wisdom, says, think you can walk this off? So she is going and basically running around the gym, right? She's like, no, something's not right. So
she's not able to walk it off.
Yeah, I mean, she was able to walk, but she was just like, this is not good. So instead of being on a spine board and going to the hospital in a ambulance like you should, she rode there in her parents' car. And she actually had a broken neck. So you can still see the halo screws to this day. So went through that. So she went through a move to Minnesota at that time. Came to Minnesota, just coming off this injury, had to go through the clearance process in Minnesota, and like basically nobody wanted to clear her to go through gymnastics again. So she was just kind of like, basically like somebody finally did. They were like, well, it's up to you if you're going to do this or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she came back and ended up as a senior. She took second in all around. She had a little wobble. I believe it was on the beam that cost her the overall state title. But it was like, I think it was 15 thousandths of a point. So, you know, you talk comebacks.
Yeah.
And in terms of being able to, after breaking your neck on a vault, to be able to go through that again, stare that down,
Oh yeah.
run down there and rock that out.
Yeah. Talk about PTSD.
You inspired me, Casey. So I'm going to give my wife the comeback, the number one comeback spot.
What a
Well
man.
done.
For injuries.
What a man.
She's a stud.
No, that is
That's
a
a
crazy
great story.
because
Should
I
be a
mean,
movie.
like gymnastics, man. I'm sure you guys have been on trampolines, like you do like your backflip, front flip, and every time I do it, I'm like, boy, I could break my neck here. And
Do
to actually,
one front flip. That's it.
yeah, and then to actually like break your neck and do it where you're like not worried about landing on a soft trampoline, like that mental fortitude is phenomenal.
Agreed.
And that's part of, you know, what went into, you know, AP for me and Peyton for me too, is like that high speed turn on that ACL, or that like, man, what if somebody sacks me from behind and just
Ray Lewis
jams that
jacking you up
right
like,
in
can
the
you
back of your
standing
neck,
still?
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's just mental fortitude, all those folks. So it's kudos. That's a good list. Next year's
That's
especially.
a good list. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Respect that.
It's I feel better now about my female vocalist list, so we're even now.
Kesha, what up?
Okay, we'll call it a wash. We'll call it a wash on this. I wish I would have had a better idea. I feel like a loser.
No, it worked out good.
You know what? I enjoyed your stories.
If we would have done just like straight up injury comebacks, I bet we would have overlapped with like half of our list, each of us, because Casey and I did.
Yeah.
Right. So I like it a little bit more where there's a little nuance to it, and where you can say like, yeah, it could be in game, or it could be coming back from that rehab, or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. Cause I'm not going to, when you sent that out, I was like, oh man, this is going to be like 3 of the same lists. Cause I knew I figured Nick would have some MMA on there that I wouldn't have on there, but I was like, man, it's going to be kind of all the same list. Cause you know, the comeback story. So I kind of glad you did that too. Cause it would have been, I think, a lot of overlap.
Yeah. All right. Then
don't feel bad. We'll make you feel
We'll
good
move it
about
forward. Next week we'll be on the same page. We'll finally do the squirmy scenes.
It's gonna be so squirmy. Teaser.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta say, I went down that rabbit hole of like scenes. You know, I was like, oh yeah, you know, what do people say are squirmy movie scenes? That was a bad rabbit hole to go down. I don't know. You don't want to research that. There are some effed up movies out there. I had no idea.
Well, it's got to be something you've watched, though. That's the
well,
thing.
Yeah.
It's
well, that's what I mean.
Movie
you know,
actually sat through and watched.
Like people would have like the top 50, you know, goriest scenes in movies, or the top 50 worst scenes in movies. And I knew like 2 of the movies, and the rest of them were horrible.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff coming out of like Korea and
Russia, Siberia. Yeah. I was ill for like 2 days because I obviously had to watch. I was like, oh, I'm curious.
Yeah, better just see what they're talking about here. And
yeah, right. Like, it can't be that bad, right? The spoiler it is. Yeah.
Then you threw up. Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to episode 16, PT Shop Talk.
What?
What was that, Jeremy?
What?
Oh, you gotta move on. You guys gotta get better at the endings. Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to send us your comments, go to ptshoptalk@gmail.com. Want to watch us, see what our ugly mugs look like, follow us on YouTube at PT Shop Talk. Until next time, I'm Casey Hansen.
I'm Jeremy Van
Nick
Kloppenberg.
Doling.
Yes, you guys are getting better. You guys are getting better. Any special shout outs you guys want to throw out before we Vita Zang?
Special shout out.
Nick, I thought this was your cue.
That was your cue. You missed the segue.
All right. Listen in next
you
time
missed
for Nick to give a special shout out.
I'm forgetting entirely what we talked about before.
Oh, well, until next time, everybody.
Okay.